Hello, and welcome, comrades, to another review from A Bad Education, your guide to how to spend your worthless capitalist currency on stupid wastes of time when you should be working your fingers until they bleed for the motherland. Alright, look, Board Game Geek has, like the rest of the internet, a few problems. For those not in the know, the Board Game Geek website is pretty much the definitive source for board game information on the internet. It's basically a huge database of storage of all details of all board games pretty much ever made. And on that, users can log into the website, they can create collections of games, they can add reviews of games, they can rate the games, they can have a chat on forums and just have a nice bit of fun. But the problem is, it's on the internet. So therefore people are also a bit horrible to each other, which is where we end up with things like rampant misogyny, and people downvoting the scores of games because they don't like the theme or the person who made it, or they just want to troll somebody. Essentially, it's just like the rest of the internet. But the point of all this is that all those user votes are added together, some complicated math supply, because we're talking about board game people obviously, and a league table is produced. So you can go to the website and see what the top 100 games are, at least according to the Board Game Geek community. And this game, Twilight Struggle, is number 1. Now surely, if a game is number 1 on that list, that makes it one of the best games ever made, surely. And even on a website full of scum and villainy like Board Game Geek, this has been number 1 for some time. And all of the games are on that list. Literally, all of the games made and produced and sold are on that list. And this is number 1. So surely that means this is the best game ever made ever. Is it though? Is it? Twilight Struggle is a game, clearly, themed around the Cold War, from its start just after World War II, right through to 1989 and the fall of communism. As that period was the US versus Russia, this is a two-player game, head-to-head, winner takes all, stare them in the eyes and take them apart psychologically kind of game. It's played out on this board, which covers the world. The game is played over 10 turns. Each turn is broken down over 7 action rounds in the early part of the game, 8 in the later half. You play with decks of cards, each from different era. Early in the Cold War, the middle period in the 60s, then the late period ending in the late 80s. The main way of winning is to score 20 victory points. Or if your action calls the death contract drop to 1, then nuclear war is kicked off and you've just lost the game. At the start of each turn, a player gets a hand of cards. On each action round they play a card until they run out of them or the turn ends. The nuts and bolts of the game is battling over the regions dotted around the map. Here's Europe. You can see that England has a high stability score, whereas a country like, say, Italy is a bit more rambunctious. So why is this important? Well, because you get those precious victory points by dominating regions. You do that by controlling the countries, which you do by having more influence points than the stability score, or more than the number of points your opponent has in the country. You also have battleground countries. Controlling all of these in a region will get you more points. But how do you get to control countries in the first place? Back to the cards. Each card has a number in the corner. It's operational points. You can use these points to place that amount of influence points in one or several countries, spreading your influence across the map into different regions. Or you can use it to instigate a coup in a country and take it over, which is easier or harder depending on the country's score. But every time you do this, the DEFCON level lowers, which brings Armageddon that one step closer, and also restricts where you can coup countries. Or you can use the card for the event that's on it. Each card is allocated to either the US or Russia, or somewhere neutral. But whenever a card is played, even if you play it for the operations points, or it's a US card and you're playing as the filthy commies, or vice versa, then the event plays out. Now this is the true heart of the game, managing your hand and your opponent's hand. The trick is to play the cards you want at the right time for the maximum benefit for you, whilst at the same time forcing your opponent to play his cards at the wrong time so he can get the proper benefit out of them. Now look, here's an early important card for the Russians. Fidel Castro and his awesome beard. Now the Russian player wants to play this card nice and early because it gives them a foothold in Cuba, which is a good starting place to build up into the Americas, which become important later on in the game. But the American player, if that's in their hand, they don't want to play that. They want to get rid of that card if they can, or force it out of the game so the Russian player can't use it to their advantage. Once per turn you can spend a card on the space track, which takes the card completely out of the game. But otherwise, you have to play the card and the event has to happen. This is where the strategy of the game comes in. For the first game you're kind of flailing around reacting to cards in your hand. But the second time something clicks. And you remember about that card in the Middle Era deck that helps you out in the Middle East. So you think, maybe I should put down some influence in that region now. So that when / if that card does pop up, then I can really use it to stick it into my opponent and snap it off. But of course he's thinking that as well. Each turn is cat and mouse. A move here, a parry there. Each player is trying to build a strategy that needs one card to kick it all off. Eyes narrowing each other, suspecting each other of foul play. Trying to push their opponent just enough without tipping everything into mutually assured destruction. Just like the real Cold War. So, is this the best game ever made? Well, I can't really answer that. Why would you ask such a ridiculously unanswerable question? But there is no denying that the system of the game of Twilight Struggle is amazing. And at first it's a bit difficult to wrap your head around, which isn't really helped by an incredibly dry manual. But after a few games the scales drop from your eyes and the simplicity of it all rises to the surface. Essentially in each turn you've only got a choice of, do you play your card as an event, or do you use operations points? But that's like saying in Memoir 44, all you do there is move and shoot people. Each choice is sweated over. Each card is agonised over when to play it at the right time. And all the time your friends sat there with a very annoyingly some smug look on their face. So I can't say if it's the best game ever made. All I can say is it's now probably one of my favourite games. So, there. До свидания!